So I've got a load of horse manure coming in, and I needed a place to put it. Plus, I have a bunch of mulch. This is palm that hasn't quite broke down. So the trick to it, it's people ask what kind of chips I get and all that. I get everything except for oleander. The only reason I don't do oleander is because my dogs like to play with sticks, and oleander is extremely toxic. So palm and that is amazing because it's got these long fibers that wick water long distance. As long as that thing it'll carry water uphill, downhill, across the hill. So by putting a percentage of palm fronds and trunk and everything else in, this will actually distribute water even better than standard wood chips. You end up with a wet spot, you put some in, it'll carry it out of the area and evenly space it into areas that are a little drier. Now, if you ask it, some people have asked if if it rots down. It rots down fantastic. This has been in the ground a little bit, and believe it or not, it's still long strands. But if you watch, let's find one here. It just comes right apart. It just shreds up, and this is already sliming up like good soil does just before it goes. And you can see the stuff growing in it. So, and this is some grass seed or something that's in there. But so what I'm going to do is I've spread this pile out pretty good distance here, and it's about 2 feet thick through most of it, thinner on the edges. But what I'll be doing is putting all the horse manure on this, and then I'll cover it with the rest of my standard chips. And that, oh, here's some beautiful soil. Look at this. So that's plantable right there. It's nice and cool. There's worms in it. Just beautiful stuff. But by doing this, I'm enriching the soil because some trees have more of one type of mineral or vitamin and acidity. Others have others. So if you mix it up with a variety of wood chips, you end up getting a full balanced soil mix. But I'll put the horse manure on here, add the standard amount of, I usually use 6 to 8 inches of horse manure. I've got a full truck coming in tomorrow, fresh. So it's still very hot. Not as hot as chicken manure by any means, but it's still very hot, and it'll rot this down quick. I'll throw on the other wood chips and then progressively start turning it, which mixes it and also balances out the water content and the mineralization between and the nutrients throughout the whole pile. From there, it's actually going to, I don't know how well you can see that. That's the rest of my soil over here, and here's my volunteers that were coming up all through it. I believe that's spaghetti squash or some of my pumpkins. But I'm gonna move this pile, and this whole area here is gonna become my actual annual veggie patch. I don't do a lot of veggies in the way of annuals because I don't want to work that hard. So by putting in just a small area on this entire property, I'm able to control the environment by fencing it so the dogs and animals can't get in there, rabbits, things like that. I can also select exactly what kind of veggies I like and want, and not worry about cross-pollination or anything else to some other plants as much. Because there are a lot of other plants in the area that people are growing, but some varieties I just don't care for. And you start mixing squashes with other squashes and you end up with gourds that are unedible. So it's easier to just contain it, keep a small area what you want, and then that will also beautify this area a little bit in a traditional garden format. plus fill in where we've got water standing, because I can take heavy wood chips or Paul and put it in originally on the bottom, and by the time the plants get down there, it'll have rotted down. Just move this whole pile so I'm sweating. But that's how I do my soil mix. I do 80% wood chips, any type of wood chips. This is shredded palm. I've got some some eucalyptus out front, along with some pepper tree and a few other things. And progressively, that will all get mixed and become beautiful soil. So it's 80% wood chips, 20% horse manure. And the reason I use horse manure instead of a lot of other chicken manure or other manures like chicken or that is because it's not as hot. Sorry, helicopter going overhead. See it right there. For some reason, some of them like to fly low through here. Helicopters and small planes. I guess they're looking at my garden a lot. But by mixing it that way, the horse manure doesn't get as hot as other manures. Goat you can plant directly into, it won't burn anything, same as rabbit, because goats, rabbits, and horses don't process their food nearly as much, so the active enzymes aren't burning off as much. Now, by using horse manure also, it has the wood chips from and the shavings from the stalls added to it as well, so it's already started to mix, so it helps break down in the first few days. Then from there, and the horses have been stepping on it and turning it naturally, so I get a pretty good balance of stuff. And in usually about 60 days, I can start screening out my 1/4 inch potting soil. And I just run it through a standard screen. Let's see if I have a piece here somewhere. I just use 1/4 inch standard screen. In fact, there's my screening barrel. Use 1/4 inch standard screen. See? And I run it through a barrel, or if I'm doing a small batch, I have a couple of screens laying around. And then from there, I start potting in it. And over time it feeds, but all the seeds have died and everything else. So then I end up with, sorry, my stuff's kind of scattered out here. This is the potting soil I had. It's a little wet, but squeeze the water out because we've had rain, and also this had ants in it. So it's really nice looking potting soil. Holds together when you need it to, but you can break it up. And if you want, you can put some vermiculite or I can't even think of the other one at the moment. Put that in it and keep it thin, or add a little sand if you're planting more of a cactus style. But it drains well, it holds moisture, keeps the humidity around the roots so you don't end up with spacing or dieback because of air layers. And you can plant it down into, I'm doing 1 inch plugs, or I think 1 1/4 inch plugs, 4 inch pots. I use it a lot in 1 gallon pots. That's my main thing. I do 4 inch and 1 gallons pretty much. And overall, I've had great results. I don't have weed invasion. I don't have any issues, and I've done this entire property that way. So over 100 loads of wood chips, and we're talking the big chipper trucks, and about, I think it was 160 yards of horse manure initially, and then I don't know how many that from there. And I just keep bringing it in. I'm doing rebuilds on the soil every 6 months if at all possible. Like the trail here is starting to sink down pretty good, so I need to get, so you can see that the concave in it, because it goes up. If you can, whoops, sorry about the shaky camera. I'm trying to do this from the front. See the log here, and you can see it's on a little bit of a hill. That log actually should be about 6 inches, well, about a foot up here, And this should actually be level, so it's an easier slope to climb. I've got a lot of fill-in to do along here. As you can see, it's collapsing down, rotting down through that whole area. And that's all gonna get terraced. So as I set the terrace, I'll be using the soil that I'm making to make nice little potting beds with it. And other than that, all these trees that were dying, well, this is holding water, and you can see the new growth on them. And the biggest one is this lemon tree, which, as I keep saying, I don't like the lemons on it because they're hard, thick-skinned, no juice. But look at the growth on this thing. It's going crazy. And this started about 4 months after I put the first load of wood chips around it. Gave it a little bit of water and let the wood chips do their thing. And this year it's just exploded. Production is up. Did about 3,000 pounds of food last year. Hoping for a lot more this year. So making soil is not hard. You can do it on your patio, on your porch, on your balcony. Just a plastic garbage can will work for it. I recommend actually using 2. Throw some wood chips in there, throw your compost in there, and then just toss it back and forth between the 2. Throw in a little bit of compost, or a little bit of wood chips, a little bit of compost, a little bit of wood chips, and you end up with a nice garbage can full of beautiful soil in a few months. Just mix it back and forth. And what's nice is it doesn't really compact down. It breaks down into smaller pieces, but it doesn't compact down like dirt does. It'll lose the airspace in it, but the actual volume is the same. So if you compressed it, it would be actually almost the exact same, because you're not losing anything. And the only thing I add to it like that, I had some ash from my fireplace, from burning wood. So I added that. There we go, that's a little better. I added that, and then occasionally I'll add some azomite, and that's about it. I'm not fertilizing, I'm not doing anything heavy. And you can see, I've got growth where there was no growth here. This was 99.5% dirt, or actually, sorry, sand and aggregate. There was no dirt, there was no mulch, the other 0.05% or 0.5% was sediment, silt, and clay. And there was a few floating sticks that had blown in from the wood chips I had put on. But that's it. I'm still getting over being sick. And I am going to take a break now. But hopefully you like what I'm doing. And that's how I do my soil. So I still am going to do the video on the kiddie pool with the sand. I just haven't gotten time because I need to get these other things taken care of. Because when you get resources, you gotta bring them in, even if you have to store them for a while, like my bricks and firewood and logs for the paths and everything else. I had the opportunity to get them. I grabbed them, and it's having the land to actually do that with is awesome. But even when I was in a condo with I think it was an 8x12 patio, high fenced patio that hardly got any sun, I put in 3 levels of shelves on the walls, and I had over 250 plants and trees in that little tiny space, plus a little table for my wife and I, and a couple of chairs, and enough space for the dogs to lay around. So have a good one. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for watching, and all the comments. And I'll see you next time. And make sure to follow me on Instagram at Farmer Brian Grows. Have a great one.